Hello and welcome to this dashboard video. We'll be making this customer success dashboard, and you don't have to follow my color scheme, but you do have to have something other than the default Microsoft Blue. You need to have a background and customized slicers and make it look professional and have text boxes that update dynamically, all the things that we've been studying in this section. Your map should update based on the region or the year, and your waterfall chart and all your percentages. It will take a little bit of time to create all these charts and put it together. The process of creating the dashboard is a little bit fiddly, but that's what makes it look professional. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's get started on the dashboard. We're going to start with bringing in the data. Go to the Data tab and then the Get Data from a file, and ours is a CSV. And then navigate out to where your downloaded data is. And when we import this, we're going to do a little bit of transforming on the data. The transform view gives you the opportunity to preview the data and get a feel for what it looks like. So we have a price column and a units column, but we don't have a revenue column. So we're going to create one, go to add a column, and with units selected, then these standard math operations should be available. Click multiply, and then you can either multiply by a number or by values in a column. We're going to multiply by the price column. Click OK. And then double click up on the header and you can change the name to revenue. And notice that now we have two new lines over here, inserted multiplication column and renamed columns. If you mess something up, you can always just X out and try it again. The other thing we're going to do is take the customer satisfaction column and change it to either low or high. I'm going to count a rating of 1 or 2 as low, and 3, 4, or 5 will be high. And we want to add a column. This time, create a column from examples, just from the selected column, which is customer satisfaction. And now I want to give examples for what I want. So let me scroll over so I can see. On the customer satisfaction, the first one will be low. And then the next row will be low. And see that Excel is trying to figure out what I'm doing. I want that one to be low. And then for 3, I'll call it high. And then everything should be pretty good except on 4, I want that to be high, and 5, I want to be high. So give an example for each of the possible values in customer satisfaction. And then when it looks right, hit OK. And now you've got a new column. Double click on the title, and I will put satisfaction as the title. Now go to the Home tab and close and load. It will automatically load it into a data table. So first, this is the queries and connections. We won't need the queries and connections anymore, so we can close that down. Let's take our data table and give it a new, shorter name, maybe just data, and I will rename the tab as data. And now I can start to make pivot tables. So my first pivot table made from the data is just going to be to get the revenue total. So nothing big, that's it. So this will be total revenue. Move on to the next one. From data. For this one, I'm going to do the timeline. So I will want to have the date and the revenue. And if I were to put in a pivot chart right now, a timeline, notice that it would only have 3 data points on it for the years. But if I expand the year 2017, now it expanded down to quarters. I don't really want to go by quarters. I'm going to take this off. I could also unselect it here. And then it defaults down to months. Open up 2018, 2019. Notice how the chart updates each time. Let's hide all of the field buttons. And we can take off the legend and the title and the grid lines. On the axis, do a right click, format the axis, and go to labels. I want to do every other label. So instead of seeing every single month, see every other month. That looks pretty good. Okay, now my theme, my color scheme is going to be a deep green. So I'm going to format the data series and change my color. I'm choosing a deep forest green, and I also want to change my marker color. The marker option, use the built-in ones. I like the round ones. And fill it with maybe a brighter green. And then I want this, my whole chart, to have no fill, so I can see the grid lines behind it. That way when I put it on my dashboard, it'll look like it's floating on top. Okay, let's mark this as the timeline and move on to the next one. This is going to be our map chart. So I need to insert a pivot table from our data. I want to have the state and the revenue in the state. Now there is a map chart, but if I go to map, it says I can't create it from inside a pivot table. So there is a map chart, it just, you can't do it. It can't use the data from the pivot table. So instead, copy the data outside the pivot table. So we'll come out to a cell, and this is all of our possible states. It won't ever be any longer than that. And now if I say to insert, and I go to charts, go to all charts, well actually there it is, my map chart, and hit OK, and there's my filled map chart. Now I do run into one problem here, which is that if I go back to my pivot table and let's put a slicer in, slice by region. If I limit it to the north region, notice that my pivot table limited and grand total came up to row 8. And so over here on this range that I selected, I have a grand total, and that's not a state, and then I also have all of these zeros. So I'm going to need to update my range so that I don't get these zeros brought in. I can do that by putting the dot after the colon. So the colon, then a dot, then your end reference. And now the chart works again. Let's format this chart. I won't need a title. I won't need the legend. Going to format the data series. So, format the data series. On the map area, only show regions with data. That way I won't see all of these empty states. And it kind of zooms in. Let me undo my slicer. Okay, that looks good. And format the data series some more. Change the color. For the series color, again, I have a green theme, so I'll choose a minimum, a light green for my minimum color, and a darker green for my maximum value. And no fill. Oh, and no border. Let's take away that border. Nope, I missed it. I need to have just the outside one selected. There we go. And put no line there. Okay, in fact, let's mark this as my map. And then go back to my timeline, and I want to get rid of this border too. Right now I've got pivot chart field selected. If I go here, I can go back to the formatting menus, put no line on that. Okay. Okay, we have the timeline, we have the map. Let's make some donut charts. For these, let's make a pivot table. And the first one I want to do is the on time, which would be the delivery performance. There's delayed and on time. And then if I take that and make it the values also, since this is just text, it won't try to sum anything. It'll just count how many times it said delayed and how many times it said on time. And then change the values and show it as a % of the grand total. And then let's make a pivot chart. that's a donut chart. I want to focus on the on time. So right now, the delayed is the smaller portion, the 21%. If I take the on time and I shift it up, now it's focusing on the on time. And for now, that will be fine. Let me make my other donut charts. I'm going to copy and paste. This time, take out delivery performance and look at whether things were returned or not, and then drag it down into the values to get a count. And then right click to show values as a percent of the grand total. And let's put in a pivot chart. That's a donut chart. Okay, we'll hold on to that. And then one more time, copy and paste in the pivot table, take out returned and put in satisfaction, whether it was low or high, drag that down to the values and change to a percent and make a donut chart. And now I have a decision to make. I think on the satisfaction, I want to focus on the not satisfied, the low. So I want to put that up in the top. This will be the priority. I went back and forth on the returned, but I think I'll keep it this way. Let's go ahead and format these charts. Let me select my first one. I want to remove the filled buttons, take off the legend. I don't need a title. Let's change the color scheme. That's a data series question. So format the data series. Go to the colors. I want my color to be in the greens again. And then my second data point, my smaller data point, I want to have no fill. But I still want to see the whole circle. So that would be put a border around it. That looks good. Oh, except I need a border around this other part too. Border, solid line. Yeah, okay. Now that oh wait, take off the border all the way around the outside and put no fill behind it. Okay, now that I have this the way that I want it, I can right click and save it as a template. I'll give it a name. This is my customer success donut. And then I can go to the other charts and right click and change the chart type, go to my templates and bring it in. And that updates all of the formatting very quickly. Okay, next, want to do the waterfall chart for this one. This one talks about the acquisition type. Add, organic, or returning. Move this. There we go. And I want to count for each of those, so move that into the values. And for a waterfall chart, if I go to pivot chart and waterfall, I again get the message that I can't do that inside a pivot table. So I will reference the data on the outside. And now if I go to insert a chart, a regular chart, go to all charts and waterfall, hit OK. And then the last box, the last one listed, if I right click on it, let me select just that data point. There we go. Right click and then set as total. It becomes the 100%. Okay, now I have a little bit of a problem again with this waterfall chart. And we'll see that if I go and put a slicer based on the acquisition. So if I only want to look at, say, organic, Then my pivot table became smaller, and now I brought in a bunch of zeros, and my grand total moved position, and my waterfall chart got messed up. So I'm going to want to keep the grand total from moving up to the top, which means the first thing I need to do is go to the design and take off the grand total. Let me undo my slicer. And then I need to update the data and use the dot again so that I don't get the extra zeros. Okay, so now I've got the waterfall chart back, and if I have just one or two of these selected, it still works, except I don't have my grand total anymore. I'm going to create that from scratch just by using a sum function and sum up whatever numbers are above it. That way, the dot syntax will bring in just empty cells, which won't mess up the data chart. The grand total stays where it was, and it adds everything above it, and that will work. Okay, so now if I take my chart and I tell it to use all four of those boxes, I get my grand total back. Okay, let's update our formatting. I don't need the title. I don't need the legend. I don't need the axis numbers because the numbers are listed above the data series. Let me updo the colors. I want to use a green scheme and double click to updo the color for my grand total. Make it a little bit darker. Okay. Make these a little bit bigger and bolder so I can read it better, and same thing on the axis names. I want to have this show up a little bit better, that border. There we go. Okay, let's select just around the outside, no fill, no line around the chart itself. Okay, I think that looks good. Let's put this all together and make our dashboard. Let's make our dashboard. I'm going to select all the cells and put a background fill. Okay, let's insert a text box. This will serve as our header. This is our customer success dashboard. And okay, make it a little bit bigger font, center it. Change the font color to my preferred green, and let's remove the fill. Actually, I take that back. Let's darken the fill. Okay, and like that, let's bring in our timeline. And our map. Get them placed. I want to have a text box for the total revenue. And increase the font, change the color, and no fill, and no border. That's the shape format. Here we go. No outline, okay. And then another text box. This one will hold the value of the revenue. To do that, I need to go back on my total revenue and create a reference and format it. Great. Okay, then on my dashboard, in the formula bar, hit equals, then go back to the total revenue. That way I get the worksheet name and the reference. Okay, let's take this box and paste the formatting onto this box. Let's make it bold. Highlight the two boxes, select both boxes, and we can align them. Align the centers. Okay. Broaden out my timeline a little bit. Okay, that part looks good. Now let me make a few more text boxes. This one will be for deliveries. We'll make it a little bit larger font and center it. What else? Let's take off the border. Okay, I like how that looks. So I'm going to make copies of it. So I need one for deliveries and one for the waterfall chart. This is going to be for satisfaction. This one will be the acquisition. And I can get rid of this one. Okay, let's bring in our donut charts. Okay, let's see. Our waterfall chart will be over here. Try to get some idea of where everything will be placed so I know how big to make these donut charts. I think that's about right. Let's see how big that is. 1.95, let's make it 2 by 2. And do the same to this one. And get them side by side. Yeah, that looks good. And then 2 by 2 again. Get them placed. Select them all and align them. Align the tops. Okay, now that the top is aligned, I can see that I need to move this one over. So I'm going to click just this one. And then I'm going to use the arrow keys to move it so that it doesn't move up or down, just using the right arrow. Okay, let's get some labels on these. For these two at least, I need labels. This is going to be on time. And let me just format it like this one. A little bit smaller. Perfect. Make a copy and bring it over here. This one is the returns. In the header on satisfaction, I need to put, this will actually be my low satisfaction percentage, and 3 more text boxes. I make my first one, and this is going to need to bring in the on-time percent, the return percent, and the low satisfaction percent. Let me get ready for that. Back here on my donut chart, outside, I will reference the on-time percent, which is B2. And I only want a single decimal place. And I'm going to reference the returns, which is F3. Again, just a single decimal place. And then the low satisfaction, which is J2. Okay, so in my text box on my dashboard, Up in the formula bar, I can have it say equals, go back to my donut chart and get my percent and bring it in. Let's place the font size, and I want it to fit inside these boxes. Let me get it centered both ways so that when I adjust the box, it will adjust the font. Put the font color and remove the fill so that when I put it in the center, yeah, that'll look good. And let's get the border off of it. Okay, great. I'll take 2 more of those, please. Copy and paste. On this one, I want to change the reference. And over here, change the reference. And I lost my formatting, so let me double click so I can put it back on both of these at the same time and either escape or undo. Okay. Then line up our text boxes. This is the fiddly part. Let's align them in the middle. I'll take it. Okay, last waterfall chart. Bring this one in and size it. Okay, I'll take that. Slicers. Click on a pivot chart and go to Analyze. We can insert a slicer. I want the years. So I don't get, if I hit date, I'm going to get every single date that there was an order, and I don't want that. Acquisition method, state, region, not country, not price, and product. Okay, now these don't have any data involved. Earlier than January 1st and after January 1st of 2020, there's no data. So if you right click, and it's cut off at the bottom. So instead, over here on slicer settings, you can hide items with no data, and that will clean up that slicer. And then I think I want my region next. And then the state. I want to extend it out so that I get every possible state. Just fits right there. Actually, let's do this. And then my product and acquisition method, I'm going to make columns. And same with the product, put it into columns. Have these go across the bottom, just so that there's a little bit more room on the dashboard. Okay. Report our connections on each slicer. That's a right click. And I want to report for every single pivot table. For the year, for the region, I want it to control every pivot table. Same for the state. In the acquisition method, I want it to control everything except the waterfall. And the product, every chart. Okay, finally, let's take our, on our state. Well, let's select all of them. And I have created my custom slicer. You need to create a custom slicer too. Doesn't have to be the same as mine, but it needs to not be this blue one, and the background has to blend into your dashboard. Okay, there's my slicers. Let's give a little trial run. I have a problem with my map chart. Let me go back and fix that. I think it's the grand total that's causing a problem. So let me go to the pivot table and remove the grand total because I don't need it for my pivot chart. And it fixed it. Okay. Florida, yep, that works. Well, the percents are changing, the product is changing. Okay. Looks like it's all working. Final step, let's highlight the last column after the end of our dashboard and Control Shift right arrow to select all the other columns. We're going to hide them. And then get our last row at the bottom of our dashboard, Control Shift down arrow, hide all of these rows. And I really ought to select all of the tabs and hide them as well. And this will be our customer success dashboard. Wow, I think we're finally done. Good job. I can't wait to see what color schemes you come up with. Again, you need to have a custom slicer. You need to have good theme color throughout. It needs to look professional. And I'd like to see you hide all the extra stuff you don't need. Take care, and I'll see you next time.